Let's spin the wheel.
Yeah, baby.
You know, ever since my kids were little, we're not allowed to say HATE in the house. I felt like that was a word we should ban. And yet, this dude is pushing his limits with me. I am glad he keeps exposing himself. What a disaster. Doing a heck of a job.
Careful with that phrase.
Yeah.
Glad he's exposing himself, is what you said.
Sorry, yeah. I was like, ding, ding, what did I say? Yeah.
That applies to him and Biden, of course, who notoriously had someone come to his house and a cleaner and was at the pool and dropped his robe and many other possible things.
Yeah, Biden used to do that to his Secret Service people. His female
Secret Service too.
Yep.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
And somebody's saying I need to be closer to my mic for less reverb. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try and fix it before next week, but I can't do it right now. So I'm sorry. Please bear with us. Yes, McKinsey, my mission in life is to prevent this man from getting close to the White House. So every time we can just, well.
Would you rather stop him or Kamala? I mean, I feel like Kamala's going to stop herself, I think, unless she inherits the position, which we can do literally nothing about. But until 2024, if she's on the ballot. But
I think Pete has more people fooled.
Yeah,
I think there are more people. I posted a tweet about him exposing himself. Sorry, there I go again. But revealing himself. What do you want me to do, Pat? What do you want? Give me a thesaurus.
Whipping it out.
What an incompetent, corrupt disaster he is. The mayor of the fourth largest town in Indiana, who was reviled by most of his constituency in that small town. Just a racist, McKinsey trained rat. But I wrote something about it, and boy, does he have, they might be bots. I have no idea, but what do you want him to do? What do you want a person in a position of power, the only person who has any authority over the airlines, what do you want him to do?
Yeah.
They're so ready.
First off, he benefits a lot from identity politics, obviously, because he's gay, but he's still he's a white male. That's still is a very, how much are you benefiting? He was crafted from McKinsey to become the president. This is
100%.
Ages ago. And he served in the military. His military, they got tons of pictures of him holding his gun wrong and just, he played Boy Scouts in the military is what he did. He's one of those guys that wanted to pad the resume.
Check it off on his resume. Yeah, exactly. So he was warned, over the summer, there was the horrifying meltdown of, I think it was kind of across the board in the airlines, was warned, was pled with by something like 37, 38 attorneys general across the country, both Republicans and Democrats, to do something in time for the holidays. And what's really not most galling, because it's all just disgusting, because he did nothing except for go on comedy shows, late night comedy shows, and say we got it taken care of, and just everybody's gonna be in good shape, and I've told them what they have to do. But Southwest Airlines, which was hit especially hard, is a slightly cheaper airline. So of course it impacts the people who can least afford to be impacted once again. But anyway, we should take a look at, because The Lever did a really nice little piece on what he could have done and how he once again falls short. You ready? Here it is.
Do you think this issue will be sorted in time for the holidays?
I think it's going to get better by the holidays.
I wasn't anticipating a nightmare, but it became a nightmare. It did.
16,000 canceled flights.
Passengers forced to sleep at airports, luggage scattered from city to city.
Again, your bags will not be here. 4 months before Southwest's mass cancellations, 38 state attorneys general from both political parties sent a joint letter to congressional leaders explicitly calling out Buttigieg's transportation department for failing to respond and provide appropriate recourse for frustrated airline flyers. Buttigieg's agency has continued to do almost nothing to prevent all of this from happening again. He hasn't fined any of America's largest airlines for unpaid refunds or mass flight cancellations, despite thousands of consumer complaints.
We've seen a lot of improvement from this summer when I called on the airlines to step up their game.
How many of Senator Sanders' calls to action are actively being considered?
Well, we've seen a lot of improvements, especially with airline delays and cancellations.
Passengers are sleeping in airport hallways.
The airlines received billions of dollars in bailout money during COVID and aid during COVID.
Their systems needed to be upgraded for some time, and the airline knew that. It's just that they diverted their funds elsewhere.
Should Southwest have known that these types of delays would occur?
In my opinion, yes. Our scheduling IT infrastructure is outdated and can't handle the massive cancellations that had to happen that day when the weather event occurred. It can't keep track of where pilots are, flight attendants are, and airplanes are. And they said they're working on it, but of course the investment wasn't made.
I'm truly sorry. We are the first airline to be able to reinstate our dividend, and not only that, but reinstate it in full.
Thousands of people stranded and desperate to get home.
What's going on? Why are you selling something that you're not providing?
As I press the airlines to enhance their customer service plans, to do it in writing.
How can travelers have faith in the airline? And to be frank, have faith in your department as a watchdog if these problems keep happening?
I mean, I was kind of shocked to see two different reporters push back on him at all. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but the way they do it is typical. I mean, I want to push back on those reporters. I don't want to give them any grief because they covered it. But typically, mainstream media will lob up the criticism and give them a lot of time to speak over the answer.
Yeah.
Which is why even if people saw those two clips, they got left with Pete's answer talking the last 2 minutes afterwards, which was cut out of this clip of him,
Yeah. And so there was a lot of like, what could he do? He could find them. And I don't know if he alone, I don't think could allow the attorneys general from states to sue on behalf of their constituents. But that is a problem because he is the only person right now who is allowed to meet any regulations on these airline industries. There's no recourse for regular people.
I mean, if you're inclined to give Pete the benefit of the doubt, you'll believe all the crap they say on TV. But like if you follow the railroads situation, you see where his motivation lies. It's in fighting the working class, 100% anti-working class.
Yeah. And, I was listening to somebody say like, so why is he doing this when he knows he's being called out publicly, humiliatingly, right? And it's such a, like so many policy discussions that we have, whether it's Medicare for all or canceling student debt or whatever, wildly popular to hold these criminal CEOs to account. And he doesn't. And the only explanation is that he's hoping they're going to bankroll his next presidential, journey, right?
Well, I mean, he can choose. He's got two resumes. He's got the resume with the public, which if it was his actual resume, not fluffed by, the media backing him up, would be terrible. He would have this move that they put him in as the Secretary of Transportation was supposed to pad his resume and help him. Like it's a safe spot. You can't do anything wrong. But now all these issues have come up since he's been there. And so his other option is, well, which resume is more important? And it's his resume with corporate class.
Yeah.
And they see him handling this airline industry stuff great. Like he's not punishing big business for
they're
in
fraud.
Southwest case,
they're selling something that they're not delivering, right?
Yeah, and literally increasing profits, you know, you don't have to give out dividends, and you haven't even done it in the past few years.
Right.
To give out dividends in the exact same time when they're having this crisis is just like, you know, even Pete calling that to the table publicly could have a huge impact on this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I just don't understand the bailouts that come with no regulations or no concessions or no parameters, right? That you can just take your COVID money and like, you know, go to stock buybacks and reinvesting dividends instead of investing in IT infrastructure, in, you know, as we saw in, I don't know if we're going to show it, but we have another clip from a couple weeks ago, the rail workers, which also falls under Pete Buttigieg's purview, right? The only thing that is going to mean anything to these CEOs is the bottom line. So they don't mind paying a little bit of penalties because a few $1 million is nothing against the billions that they make every year. It has to be, and they don't mind public anger, apparently, because people are furious, but then it just disappears. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, it's in the same vein that hospitals who deny coverage knowingly can only face something like a $25,000 criminal penalty, which compared to the cost of the services is nothing. So, I mean, they may have changed that a little bit recently, but that was the
that
for
penalty
years.
is always going to be worth it to them, right?
Right. It's a cost benefit analysis. So you know, so Southwest is taking a hit with the public, but then, you know, a year, 6 months from now, somebody poor needs to fly. Southwest is the poor flight. They're going to, you know, the less expensive flight. They're going to take that flight. I mean, most people, it's just ridiculous. But we should show how Pete handled the railroad crisis. And our friends at Useful Idiots had a good segment on it.
If these pundits, you know, can at least offer a guess as to, you know, how much it has cost the U.S. economy, that, as Surface Transportation Board Chairman Martin Oberman himself said, since 2010, the Class 1 rail carriers have spent $46 billion more on stock buybacks and shareholder dividends than they have spent investing in railroad maintenance, right? And so, like, if the tracks are, you know, falling apart, if the trains are derailing, right, just know that that's coming because the owners of these companies thought it was more important to pay themselves through stock buybacks and shareholder dividends than to actually protect the public and railroad workers by investing in railroad infrastructure. Like, the thing I would say is that when we talk about the corporate takeover of America, like, that can sound pretty opaque and shadowy, but this is what it actually looks like. This is what happens when the reigning, you know, philosophy is to eliminate the costs of treating your workers like human beings. If you treat workers like just faceless meat bags and no one stops you from doing that, you can exploit the shit out of them and extract a lot more value from them and their labor. And this is what companies and businesses across the country are doing. I think one thing we should really emphasize is what is happening on the railroads. Even though it is a very specific situation, the kind of corporate dynamics, the cost cutting, the labor disciplining, the piling more work onto fewer workers, the turning a business into a profit generating scheme for Wall Street, all of that is happening all around us, and workers in different industries are taking notice. And I think one good thing to come from this whole miserable process is more and more workers across the different craft unions in the railroad industry are uniting around shared principles and shared demands and big ideas like, hey, let's nationalize the railroads and remove these blood-sucking parasites who are draining everything from the system and actually put it under democratic control. Or, hey, why don't we get the 12 unions to act in greater concert so that the different fingers of the craft railroad unions can become a powerful swinging fist in situations like these.
He's our Mick Lynch. I love him. I mean, we have a few of them, but like, he's great. And he puts it so eloquently, but that is what is happening across every different part of the whole economy.
Well, that takes me back to, I mean, since we're having the storms and the power companies, the other major power company in California is PG&E. And PG&E is responsible for all the wildfires. And they knowingly, basically, they told their field people not to notice these problems that they knew were happening.
Right.
Which was that they had these big, heavy transformer things hanging on hooks, and they were so old that the hook would start sinking into the thing holding it. When that fell, it would cause a fire.
Right.
And they knew that. And they pretended like, well, we'd have to fly by with helicopters. And meanwhile, people on the ground with the camera could just look up there and take a picture.
Right.
So
we'd
it
have
was
to
a
do our job.
Total lie. But where you see that fuse with the government is you got Newsom out there peddling, well, we can't really punish, you don't want to punish PG&E. You don't want to hurt them too much because of all the people that own stocks, the moms and pops that own stocks in PG&E.
Sure.
And so that's their narrative for not punishing them.
Tens of thousands of acres of wildfires that were caused by them a couple years ago, and they paid almost no penalty at all.
Almost none. And Newsom's office gave them like a green light as a safe company recently or something that was just, and people at PG&E that are in the know are like, PG&E shouldn't even exist. Like this should have ended them as a utility company. It should have been a takeover or something. There should have been some oversight. And instead we're getting the narrative from our literal progressive governor that, well, if we go too hard at them, it's going to hurt stocks and we can't.
I handed them a strongly worded letter and asked them to shape up.
Yeah. So.